Hello, everyone. This is completely ridiculous, but I have to do this video like this because my computer is malfunctioning. So I can't I can't sit up. It's stupid. But yeah, I can't the screen has to come down a little bit or else the screen doesn't I can't the screen goes black. So I'm going to have to I'm living on fumes right now financially. Um, so it's going to be a while before I can buy a new computer. But anyway, I wanted to discuss some things having to do with near death experience wisdom and also my own near death experience wisdom and the NDEs, which I believe are the most common, the truths of NDEs, which are the most common, which actually do match the wisdom I saw in my NDE as well. I hope that was clear. With regards to the cycle of life and eating, the need to eat, humans need, actually every living thing needs to eat. But I've recently become deeply interested in the veganism movement, but not because I was attracted to veganism ever. I've never, ever felt an inner calling to become vegetarian or vegan. And so for a lot of different reasons, even before my NDE, I have a very strong internal guidance system. Part of the reason for that internal strength of that internal guidance system is because of some very unique circumstances when I was a child. And I don't know if I'm ready to open up about them. I had a unusual childhood, not because my parents chose to raise me in an unusual way, but because there was, well, basically, I had a paranoid schizophrenic parent, my mom. And so I was able to be, I mean, I was kind of feral, and from age 7 or 8 until I was 10, and I was taken out of her custody. And I love my mother, by the way. She's an amazing, she has strong internal guidance too. But I love her unconditionally. She couldn't help what happened to her. Um, and I don't fault her at all for the neglect that I experienced. In fact, I am very grateful, especially because of my NDE and what my NDE showed me during the experience about how everything is really perfect in our lives. We just can't see it. So I'm really grateful for the odd, wild way in which I was raised or not raised. I missed school for 2 years, almost 2 full years, from ages 9 to 10, 8.5, and 9 years old, completely stopped going to school. And just I ran around. I ran around in these big fields by myself outside in back of the house. Huge fields. They're now neighborhoods. They've been completely built over. But yeah, I was spending my days, from dusk till, sunset, or even sometimes I was out at night by myself, just wandering around because I had no supervision, very little supervision. And so I was running around and interacting with nature. Instead of sitting in a classroom, I was catching pollywogs in a pond. That was a big thing for me, is watching the cycle of life with frogs and toads. There was this enormous pond, and I was catching them and watching them, fascinated. It was really magical time in my life, just watching these um, tadpoles and pollywogs swim and grow. And and watching their legs come out. The back legs would come out first, and these little tiny hands would come out, and then they'd blossom into full grown frogs and toads after a while. Anyway, it was absolutely, I'll never regret that. I'll never wish that I was in school instead. And I ended up dropping out of high school later on because those formative years made it so that I really couldn't do school ever again. I couldn't. It felt I felt like I was bad because I couldn't do school. But the truth is that I couldn't sit and be told what to think. And I couldn't, it wasn't even that. I just couldn't focus on that stuff. It wasn't interesting to me at all. It was not, it felt, to be honest, like absolute hell and cruelty. It felt like torture sitting in classes. The only saving grace for me were great teachers, a few great teachers that saw my intelligence and my sensitivity and really loved me. They were wonderful influences on my life. They took interest in me and tried to gently steer me in the right direction. And those teachers helped bring out a little bit of scholastic aptitude in me. But I could never be trained again to be obedient, and I wasn't a troublemaker. I just couldn't fall in line. That's another story. So when I was a small child, so this may seem disorganized. Let me just go back though. We were pretty poor, obviously, because of the state of what my mother was going through. And one time she had a date with a man, and I went on the date with her. I was about 7. And I said, I want steak, and I knew I wanted steak. I had it. It probably had been a long time since I had steak. I'm sure of it, because we didn't have the money for it. But I knew at 7 years old, I remembered the taste of steak, rare steak, and that's what I wanted. And so the waitress came and said, "And what will you have?" And I said, "Steak." And, I knew what I wanted. And the man was very sweet, my mother's date. And he said, "She can have steak." And so I think it was a ribeye. I'm not sure. But I'll never forget the feeling of that steak, the feeling of eating that steak, even the first bite, was visceral. I knew in that very moment and I had no thoughts about anything except for how it was. I was just eating food. I was only 7. I didn't have any ideas about animal cruelty or anything. But I did feel immediately, wow, this is good for me. And if you can't understand that feeling if you've never had it, so I'm not going to try to force you, but I only ask that you believe me, because if you've had the experience, and I know many have had this experience where they eat meat, especially red meat, and they feel an incredible, immediate, almost spiritual elevation of their energy. It is so powerful. And when you have that feeling, it becomes unmistakable what the truth is. So from that age on, I knew that meat was profoundly good for my health. One of the things that actually came to my mind when I was 7 was, and I don't know if this was God's guidance or what, but it helps my skin. It darkens my skin. I find that really interesting, and I don't ever want to forget what that guidance told me, because I'd like to see if science says something about this someday. The somehow skin health. I don't know. Does meat do something important for our skin? I'm not sure. Um, but I will say I notice a lot of vegans are very pale. It's a common uh, thing that I see. I can't deny it. I see it. And remember, or not remember, but I have been around, I live in Northern California. I have been around vegetarians and vegans my entire life. Northern California is hippie, veggie, health food central. I am not a stranger to this ideology at all. I just stayed out of it. I didn't, you know, I just said, well, they can. I respected people's inner guidance when friends would become vegetarian. I never once argued, ever. I just respected their inner guidance. If they're being guided, and there are very many people I've known who actually sort of naturally, even as children, reject meat. They don't like it. I don't know what the reason for that is, but I trust it. I trust it for them. I absolutely do, without a doubt. Internal guidance is so important to follow. And not all of us will get the same internal guidance to eat the same foods. That's silly to think that. We're not robots. We're not cookie cutouts of one another. We're just not, and we shouldn't be. We shouldn't try to be cookie cutouts. We're not created that way. We're not robots. All right. So now let's get to the NDE and NDE wisdom around food, because this is fascinating. NDEs give us these incredible insights into life and what's really important in life. And the number one thing they talk about is love, unconditional love. Telepathy is real. Um, Interconnection with all of life, the earth, the sky, the trees, the plants, the animals. Interconnection with others. We're all connected. We're all deeply cherished and loved. Okay, so, and that there's a purpose uh, to our lives that we cannot see while we are here. Very rarely can we see it while we're just living our lives. Fear veils us quite a bit, and so we have to sort of trust. That's faith in God. We have to live our lives in faith. Those are common NDE truths. But you would think, with all of the incredible, uplifting, and important information that humans are given during their near death experiences. So ask yourself, why is food never mentioned during an NDE experience? I mean, that's an important topic for all the stress that we have around it, all the neurosis that we've developed over the past 50 years around food. Since media started telling us what to eat, is it all pointless? All this neurosis? Well, there may be a spiritual point to becoming neurotic, like so that we can learn about neurosis. I won't go into that, but it certainly does not reflect the truth of my NDE. To be neurotic about food and about health does not at all reflect NDE wisdom. So when we're doing that, we are going completely the opposite direction from what NDEs tell us to do. This is really interesting and important. All right, so they don't talk about food, and they do not talk at all about the sins of eating meat. Now, that would be such important information for us to know about. So why is it not mentioned? Why is meat, if meat eating is so bad for us, why do NDEs never speak of it? Now, granted, there are a few NDEs that became plant-based after their NDE, but please hear me when I say I'm friends with a lot of fellow NDEs. Most NDEs still eat meat. They did not change. So these are all really important clues if you're interested in the spirituality and the connection and if we're supposed to be eating meat or not. There are so many arguments and so many obvious things about eating meat. For example, we've been doing it since forever, and the idea that we've made a mistake for thousands of years about what we're desiring and attracted to eat. That's that is from my personal opinion, that's a total fallacy. It that doesn't happen. A species doesn't survive by eating the wrong thing forever. Sorry, but it doesn't happen. I'm not disparaging those who are guided to become vegans. I believe certain people are guided there, and I think, at least for a time, they're guided, 10 years, whatever. And I think there's some, we don't know everything scientifically. We don't. Science is not finished. It's still evolving. And there are a lot of scientists that are completely skewed and biased. It's called scientism. It's not true science. You have to if you're interested in science, you have to be interested in the actual truth of things, not the biased truth. I mean, don't you want to know if you're being manipulated? Well, that does happen. I mean, humans do manipulate each other. You have to question what you're being told. And you also have to listen to your body. You have to. I mean, we didn't what kind of a what kind of a society do we live in if we just follow what the media or all books tell us? Or you know what I'm saying? Like you're not listening to your own. You have an internal guidance system. You really do. And that's one of the most important things to get in touch with. It's so important to start touching on the truth within you. Do I crave milk today? Why am I craving milk? I don't know, but I'm going to have some. I'm not going to, that's my internal guidance. I'm craving, I'll tell you a story. Years ago, I believe that I've always been, I believe I've always been a little bit on the verge of anemia or prone to anemia. And I'm not sure why. I know why I think that, but I'm not sure what the health reasons are for it. But one time years ago, I was I was very poor in my 20s, and I was about to get my period. And I have done a lot of reading about nutrition since I was a young woman, 19. Actually, it was one of the things I was guided to research after my near-death experience. And so I knew that I was feeling weak and tired because I didn't have enough iron. But I had very little money. And so I was feeling pretty desperate to feel better. And so I took the tiny amount of money I had and I live in San Francisco, so I went to a corner store, and I was very despondent and depressed about not being able to buy enough food. But I looked at the canned goods and thought, what can I eat that's going to make me feel better? And I have always hated smoked baby clams. Never liked them. The clams in general grossed me out forever. But on this day, I was staring at the clams, the smoked baby clams, and my body was telling me, "Oh, those look so good." It was undeniable, fierce, uh, almost pregnancy craving, like a pregnancy craving. So I thought, well, I'll just get them. So I bought them. I got them home, opened the can, and ate the entire can in one sitting. Like, the feeling was as though I was thirsty and I was gulping down loads of delicious, sweet tea. that's how delicious the clams tasted on that day. It was amazing. It was an experience because I remember as it was happening, I was like, "Wow, I don't know what's going on, but these are delicious today." So, after I ate them all, I was just sort of sitting there stunned, like, why were those so good? Why what's going on? And then I did what I do. After the fact, I flipped over the box the tin came in, and I read the nutrition facts, and you cannot imagine my shock at reading iron, 100%. My body guided me through cravings. This is the guidance of the body is absolutely stunning. The intelligence of the body is so stunning. It defies logic and reason almost. Because think about it. I went to the store, despondent, sad, and feeling ill, having an idea that I might be anemic, stared at the baby clams on the shelf, and my body just forcefully told me to buy them. So my body, even though it hadn't had a smoked baby clam in probably 20 years, it remembered the nutritional makeup of what was in those clams and said, "You need them." That's pretty amazing. All right, so there's that. Now on to the NDE. So first of all, during my NDE, I was loved profoundly, and I was shown how innocent, absolutely, totally innocent I was. And I've spoken about that before, how powerful that was, because I had accumulated so much shame, especially coming from a very dysfunctional environment as a child. Those kids who go through that kind of thing usually do develop shame because they're different than a lot of other kids, and they're um, have behavior problems or separation anxiety, and they just start to feel wrong at life. I'm wrong at life. I'm wrong. I shouldn't be here. There's something wrong with me. So, and that was a shameful feeling. It doesn't feel good when you feel that way. And the NDE showed me ir- uh, that I couldn't be more mistaken about that. I'm so important. And so are you. You're here because you're important. But there was not one moment in that NDE where I was shown that, well, you're doing this wrong, though. Nothing. You have to think about the implications of what that means. I mean, it's really hard. I get it because I go through it too. I didn't come back from my near death experience as a perfect saint who never judges and never feels righteous and never, I deal with all of that. But it did give me a great perspective so that I can take steps back and reconnect with the wisdom of my NDE when I'm getting off base. And I can also forgive myself for getting off base because we all do it. Everybody does. Everybody gets way off base. And every single human being I've met is a hypocrite at different times. And it's just what we are. We're confused and we do that, and we have to give ourselves a break from the perfection, game that's never going to lead you to anything good. Thinking that you need to be perfect and get your diet perfect and all of that, it's pointless. From my perspective, it's pointless. The most important thing that we have to get in touch with is our inner guidance, because that's where God talks to you. And it's really a relaxed thing. It is not something that you have to meditate for 20 years to achieve. It is ready to go, tapped in, turned on, already, shiny, bright, new, ready to use within you. It is not. It doesn't need this practice to become more clear. No, no. The only thing it needs is you starting to recognize, oh, I have an internal guidance system and it's ready to go. You just keep saying that to yourself. Keep affirming it's there. And believe me, it will show up in droves the minute you start accepting it and take the doubt out. Just doing the doubt is this, the doubt's pretty hard work. Doubt is very exhausting. Struggling to, oh, but I don't know, but I don't, what about just let go? Let go of all that struggle. That's where the wisdom starts coming in when you're relaxed. It's very simple. It's very easy, really, you know? So NDEs, I've studied about 10 years ago was when I started to really embrace my own NDE and talk about it a little bit openly. And 10 years ago was also when I started heavily researching and just diving in to reading others' NDE stories. And that's so great that the internet, I would never have had access to all of this 25 years ago. But now there's websites and nderf.org and all of these websites that are devoted to and IANS collecting NDE stories. And so I became I spontaneously dove in and began years-long research into the near-death experience phenomena and the stories. I was very interested in compiling all of the information I could and matching it with my own. And also, you get a really wonderful high when you're reading NDEs. It was such a beautiful feeling to read near-death experiences, and they would echo what I went through in mine. And it was like little moments of coming back home to it. Like, yes, this is true. This stuff is true. What we think is too good to be true is actually the truth. Oh, it's amazing. It is amazing. So I did that. And so I can tell you that there's literally not one NDE I have ever read where they got information from God or from light beings or from the angels. There's about food or about meat eating. None. And that's really important to understand. If you're someone who believes in near-death experiences and is interested in them and is also interested in truth, you have to be interested in knowing the truth, whether you are biased towards that truth or not. But if you want to know the truth, read them yourselves. There's no information about meat eating. And on top of that, there are no life reviews I have ever read where someone saw that they killed an animal or ate an animal and saw the pain and suffering of the animal and felt guilty for eating animals. That is not in life reviews, not up to this point at least, and we're talking thousands of stories. So I just wanted to let you know from an NDE perspective, meat eating is part of, okay, it is, it's a conundrum, yes. And there's much of life that is a conundrum. There's the conundrum of never wanting to cause your animal, like you have a cat or a dog that you love dearly. You don't want to cause them harm, and yet you have to take the cat to the vet because the cat's sick. That's a conundrum. I hate causing pain to my animal, but I have to take him because he's sick. To be honest, I use prayer most of the time instead of vet visits for my animals, and it's done pretty well. My dog is 18 years old now. But I do take them to the vet. If my fear is too strong, I'll just, take them to a vet if I can't pray my way through. Oh man, I lost track of what I was saying. Oh, The conundrum of loving animals dearly, dearly, deeply, deeply loving them and hating to see suffering, because of course you hate to see suffering. You're an empathic animal on this earth. You're an empathic human. You're capable, and that's normal. It's normal to be sad. But c- I believe I believe that humans are actually omnivores, and actually meat is a very integral, necessary part of our diet for optimum health. And I I think that I think you need to do what you're guided to do. But just know NDEs have nothing to say on it. They have nothing to say. Y- NDEs, more often than mentioning animals, this is really fascinating. More often than mentioning animals, they mention how they could go into a tree when they were out of body and feel the bliss of that tree, or they could enter into the grass and be the grass. There's more mention, a few I've read talk about how in their they saw in their life review that when they were angry and walking around, the grass and the trees recoiled from them. Angry, judgmental thoughts is pushing on the energy around you, including the intelligent, sentient beings that are, the plants. Well, this is very interesting. So you need to ask yourself, and I ask myself, what is the reason that animals are not mentioned in NDEs very at all? Like, so rare that I'm not even sure I've ever read one where they do mention animals. They're very rare. But it is more common to read where they had an experience of bonding with plants and seeing the intelligence of plants and feeling the feeling of being plants. So you have to ask yourself, why is that? Why is there more evidence of the uh, connection we have with plants than there is with animals? I have my own theory, but you have to do your own check in with your inner guidance about why that is. But if you'd like to know mine, my theory on that is because it's helping us with a bias, that we're biased to see animals as other living beings, but we don't see plants that way. And I think that it's correcting a bias, possibly, where we start to see, oh wow, life is so much more than me and the animals. It's also the insects, and it's also the plants. And then we move on from there, and we realize that the rock, consciousness is everything. All right, well, thanks for putting up with this video with me laying down. um, oh my God, if you want to donate, oh, I could really use donations right now. I need to buy a new computer. So if you can, I really appreciate it. Uh, yeah, keep praying, and, just listen for your inner guidance. Really try to find it. Don't try, actually. Relax. All right. Have a great day.